Imagine waking up from, like, a completely surreal fever dream.
Oh, yeah, we've all had those.
Right. But in this one, a giant footprint is stamped outside your house. You're suddenly climbing a tangled tree, and you're scrambling because you realize you left your cell phone behind.
Naturally, the worst nightmare.
Exactly. And for some inexplicable reason, you are gripping a carpenter's hammer.
Okay, that took a turn.
Yeah, right. And normally, you just shake your head, grab a coffee, and let all that bizarre imagery fade into your morning routine.
Sure, you just brush it off.
But what if just a few hours later, you turn on the news and see those exact chaotic details playing out live in your nation's capital?
Like playing out as a real-world event.
Yes, as a violent political crisis.
Wow. I mean, that completely shatters that comfortable barrier we all rely on, between our subconscious nonsense and waking reality.
It totally does. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Our mission today is to explore a scenario where that barrier just completely collapses.
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
We are looking at this really fascinating intersection of modern faith healing, cryptic prophecy, and highly charged political commentary.
And the stack of sources we have in front of us is incredibly unique.
Oh, it's a goldmine. We're examining a biographical document, a chilling warning ultimatum, a highly specific Facebook post dated May 12, 2026, and then a frantic live video broadcast recorded literally just 24 hours later.
And at the absolute center of this whole digital and spiritual paper trail is a man named Narciso Olalo.
Right. So he's a Filipino man who introduces himself in his biography with, honestly, an incredibly bold title.
Very bold.
He claims to be the #1 instrument chosen by God.
Which is, quite the claim.
It is. And I really want you, the listener, to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is maybe feeling overwhelmed by a chaotic, unpredictable world right now.
Right. Someone looking for answers.
Exactly. Consider how appealing it might be to find someone who doesn't just offer vague comfort, but claims to have a direct, absolute line to divine truth.
And understanding that appeal is just crucial here. I mean, before we even touch the prophetic visions or the political explosions detailed in these sources, we really have to look at how someone like Narciso Olalo constructs such ironclad credibility with his audience.
Let's definitely look at the foundation he built. So, according to his biography, Narciso operates primarily as a faith healer.
Right.
But he emphasizes this very strict, uncompromising divine mandate. He says he must never charge a single cent for his services.
Yeah, that's a huge point for him.
It's written in all caps across his materials, like, the healing must be absolutely free.
And the text explicitly quotes what he claims is a direct message from God, instructing that no money should ever be collected.
Not a dime.
Exactly. He states that God uses his physical voice to heal people, which is an act, he says, depends entirely on the individual's faith in Jesus Christ and, their belief in Narciso as the chosen instrument.
It's like he has built an open source spiritual platform.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Right. By completely removing the monetization aspect, he neutralizes that immediate skepticism most people harbor toward faith healers.
Because we are totally culturally conditioned to look for the grift.
Exactly. We're always looking for the catch. If there's no financial transaction, your brain kind of short circuits that suspicion, and you build this immense trust instead.
But that trust is then leveraged into something much, much more invasive.
Oh, definitely. How so?
Well, the documents detail that God also granted him what he calls the power of mind.
Okay, power of mind, like telepathy.
Not just that. This isn't described as simple empathy or mind reading. Narciso claims this ability allows him to see the complete life story, and this is critical, the hidden sins of anyone he interacts with.
Wait, really? They're secret sins?
Yeah, both the living and the dead.
Oh, wow. That is intense.
It is, and he pairs this with the ability to foresee future events. So his ultimate message to his followers distills down to 3 divine demands.
Which are?
Repent for your sins, renew your Christian life, and maintain great faith.
So he essentially establishes himself as the ultimate moral auditor.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Offering free spiritual healing is one thing, but claiming the ability to see someone's secret sins, that elevates this to an entirely different psychological level.
It really shifts the power dynamic.
Yeah. But how does a figure transition from providing free personal spiritual auditing to broadcasting highly specific predictions about the future?
Well, by removing the financial motive and
Right.
constantly reinforcing that he is acting under an unavoidable command from God, Narciso kind of changes his categorization in the minds of his followers.
Right, he's not just a guy giving advice anymore.
Exactly. He stops being a mere spiritual advisor and becomes an unquestionable divine conduit.
I see. So if you believe he healed your mom for free,
And he can perceive your deepest secrets. Yeah, you are completely primed to accept whatever he predicts next. He establishes total moral and epistemological authority.
and that unquestionable authority is really the engine driving the core of our deep dive today. Because on May 12th, 2026, Narciso publishes this highly detailed, deeply weird vision on his public Facebook page.
The imagery he chooses to share there is incredibly vivid.
It's wild. Let me walk you through the text of this post. So, Narciso writes that he is inside his house when Jesus, who, by the way, he casually refers to as his best friend.
Which is such a fascinating detail on its own.
Right. So his best friend calls out to him, announcing that a great miracle is about to happen.
Okay, setting the stage.
Yep. Jesus points out a single massive footprint outside, but then suddenly a flood appears, forcing them to climb a tree to cross over the water.
And this is where the narrative immediately shifts from these grandiose divine announcements to hyper-specific, almost mundane struggles.
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of physical comedy in it.
There really is.
Narciso scrambles. He realizes he forgot his cell phone, runs back for it, but forgets it again.
Because of course.
Right. So instead, he grabs a toolbox, and he makes a point to specify taking a hammer, which he calls a martillo, and a chisel, a pate.
Very specific tools.
Exactly. He goes back out, climbs this tree that's covered in thick vines, and literally swings like a monkey to reach this strange feature he calls a door print.
Even modern prophets apparently suffer from the anxiety of leaving their iPhones behind during a divine revelation.
Honestly, highly relatable.
But that detail, the door print, is such a strange, evocative phrase.
It is. And from this high vantage point up in the tree, he looks down and describes a completely chaotic scene.
What's happening on the ground?
A huge crowd of people is desperately digging up the earth, trying to cover or uncover this giant single footprint. He even notes that some people are trying to fabricate a fake second footprint, but they are thwarted.
Wow.
Yeah. Frustrated by all the noise and chaos, Narciso takes his hammer and strikes it from above, demanding everyone stop and listen.
A very authoritative gesture.
Right. And then the post just ends simply. He announces he will explain the meaning behind all of this on his regular Sunday Zoom call at 9:00 a.m.
The contrast there between a cosmic conversation with Jesus and the frantic search for a cell phone and hardware tools, it creates a very specific type of puzzle for his followers.
It reads like a fever dream filtered through a carpenter's manual.
That's a great description.
The imagery is chaotic, but it also feels so intentional. So what is the psychological function of publishing something so fragmented and bizarre? Why drop a riddle involving vines and chisels instead of just speaking plainly?
Well, this taps into a well-documented psychological phenomenon called apophenia.
Apophenia, what's that?
It's basically the human brain's natural tendency to perceive meaningful connections between entirely unrelated things.
Oh, like seeing shapes in the clouds.
Exactly like that. By publishing this active, urgent narrative, he isn't just asking his audience to read a story passively.
Right, there's action.
Yeah, the struggle to climb, the swinging, the striking of the hammer, these represent forceful, dynamic intervention. He has essentially published a high-stakes encrypted code.
So he's giving them homework.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He is deliberately priming his audience's brains to scan their environment, watch the news, and actively search for real-world events that can be mapped onto these highly specific symbols.
And Narciso sets this elaborate stage on May 12th. But the curtain goes up just 24 hours later.
Things move fast.
Really fast. He didn't even wait for his Sunday morning Zoom call to decode the puzzle because the very next day, May 13th, events in the real world unfolded so rapidly that he jumped onto a live video broadcast to translate his vision in real time.
Yeah, the real-world events completely outpaced his own scheduled revelation.
In the live video, he is completely breathless.
You can really feel the urgency.
You totally can. He tells his viewers that the Facebook post from the day before was a direct, undeniable prophecy of a massive incident that had just erupted at the Philippine Senate.
And then he starts breaking it down.
Yes, he begins going through his dream, symbol by symbol, superimposing it directly onto the breaking news headlines.
We really need to look closely at how he maps those symbols because it's fascinating.
Let's do it. First, the single footprint. So, in Tagalog, footprint translates to bakat ng paa, but Narciso connects it to a stone, A Bato.
Okay.
Right, and he translates this literal symbol to mean Senator Ronald Bato DelaRosa. So the giant footprint in the dream is Senator Bato.
That linguistic bridge there is a really fascinating piece of interpretation.
It really is. Then he addresses the crowd digging in the dirt. He claims this represents the Senate taking Senator Bato into custody to protect him.
From who?
Well, meanwhile, the outside forces trying to arrest the senator are mapped onto specific agencies. He names the NBI, which is the National Bureau of Investigation, essentially the national police force in the Philippines, as well as politicians like Trelanes, who is a prominent political figure there.
Right.
And he says they are acting on behalf of the ICC, the International Criminal Court.
And this is where those hardware tools suddenly find a real-world counterpart.
They really do. Narciso points out that in the actual news footage of the event, the arresting forces were literally using tools to drill into doors at a nearby building to gain access.
Wow.
Yeah, he claims that action represents the chisel, the pate, and the door print from his dream.
And what about the misplaced cell phone?
He says that represents the media blackout during the chaos. Professional cameras weren't allowed inside, so the public was relying on scattered cell phone footage for information.
Everything fits. Even the vines he had to climb get a political translation.
Exactly. He states the thick, tangled vines represent high-ranking lawmakers caught in a messy, complicated legal web of their own making.
And the hammer.
Finally, we reach the hammer he strikes from above. He interprets this as the Supreme Court, the highest authority in the land, striking down a ruling and enforcing the rule of law to stop the violent overreach playing out on the ground.
Now, before we go further, we really need to pause the analysis for a moment and make something crystal clear to you listening.
Absolutely. We are strictly examining Narciso Olalo's synthesis of these events as presented in these documents.
Right. We are not taking a side on Philippine politics.
Not at all. We take no position on the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court, Senator Bato, or any of the left-wing or right-wing politicians mentioned.
We are completely impartial.
Our focus is entirely on the mechanism of how Narciso utilizes a real-world political flashpoint to validate his spiritual authority.
Exactly. The mechanics of how this prophecy is constructed are what make it such a compelling case study.
So let's dig into those mechanics. Looking at the timeline, Narciso is acting as a sort of divine cryptographer here.
Definitely.
But I have to wonder about the sequence of events. The Facebook timestamp proves he posted the imagery on May 12th, but he didn't assign the actual meaning of the symbols until May 13th.
Right, after the news broke.
Exactly. Is there a specific term for this kind of delayed interpretation?
Yeah, the concept you were looking for is retroactive matching.
Retroactive matching.
It's a cornerstone of modern digital prophecy. Think of it like shooting an arrow into a blank wall and then walking up the next day to paint a bullseye directly around it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right. To the audience standing far away, it looks like a miraculously perfect shot.
So the vague imagery serves as a blank canvas.
Precisely. Yeah. By planting evocative but undefined imagery, like a hammer, a footprint, a door, on May 12th, he created an undeniable digital paper trail.
A time-stamped proof.
Exactly. So the moment political chaos erupted on May 13th, involving a politician nicknamed Stone, and literal doors being drilled, he just anchored his pre-existing text to reality.
It's honestly kind of genius.
It really works. To his followers, the retroactive nature of the translation doesn't diminish the power, it actually enhances it. The dream is the lock, the news is the key. When they click together, it feels undeniably miraculous to the believer.
But Narciso doesn't stop at just decoding one isolated skirmish at the Senate.
Oh no, he goes much further.
If the hammer represents the Supreme Court enforcing order, he basically uses this explosive incident as a launching pad to diagnose the entire socio-political structure of the country.
He dramatically broadens the scope of his narrative in that live broadcast.
He makes these sweeping political claims. He states that for 16 years, God has explicitly labeled the Philippines a sinful nation.
That is a heavy label.
Yeah. He paints a bleak picture of a massive, highly organized syndicate of corruption.
And he names names, right?
He does point fingers across the spectrum, alleging this corruption runs from the Marcos administration down to the NBI, the police on the street, and even permeates the religious establishment with corrupt priests.
Wow.
He claims they are all functioning as a single, sinful entity.
It is a wholesale condemnation of the civic and spiritual infrastructure.
He does carve out one specific exception, though.
Who is that?
He vigorously defends Vice President Sara Duterte. He claims she is a clean politician who is being targeted and harassed with impeachment precisely because she refuses to participate in this syndicate. He alleges that powerful oligarchs and businessmen people who manipulate the country's laws to evade taxes on commodities like sugar and oil are the ones orchestrating her downfall.
So he is delivering a highly specific, very charged political narrative, but he's wrapping it entirely in the framework of divine truth.
Yes, and it all culminates in a terrifying warning.
What kind of warning?
He says that if this blatant disregard for the law continues, if the national police keep acting violently and the corruption remains unchecked, the public is going to snap.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
He warns that the citizens will turn on each other, resulting in a full-blown revolution or a civil war.
Oh, wow.
And he explicitly compares the potential fallout to the civil war in Nepal.
That is wow. For anyone unfamiliar, the Nepalese Civil War was a brutal, decade-long conflict that resulted in thousands of casualties and completely dismantled a centuries-old monarchy.
Yeah.
It's not a light comparison to make.
It is a massive escalation of stakes. So, if he is setting up this framework where the government is inherently sinful and the nation is on the brink of a bloody collapse, that puts his role as a peaceful healer in a very weird spot, right?
It seems like a contradiction at first glance.
Yeah. Does he just abandon his brand of free spiritual healing to become a doomsday political critic?
Well, looking at historical patterns, prophecy and politics are rarely separate spheres.
Really?
Yeah. Throughout history, individuals claiming divine insight often emerge during periods of intense political instability. By framing the entire government structure as inherently sinful and categorizing politicians as greedy cogs in a corrupt syndicate, Narciso achieves something highly strategic.
What's that?
He positions his spiritual remedy as the absolute only viable political solution.
Oh, because if the earthly courts and police are thoroughly corrupt, you can't rely on them for justice.
Exactly. The earthly mechanisms are completely broken in this narrative. Therefore, the only way to save the nation from a devastating civil war is divine intervention and mass repentance.
So he merges civic duty with divine salvation.
Perfectly said. In this expanded framework, he isn't just auditing or healing individuals anymore. He is attempting to heal the nation-state itself.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So an angry doomsday warning doesn't contradict his role as a healer. It is the ultimate expression of it on a macro scale.
I get it. To save the patient, the doctor has to tell them the disease is terminal unless they take one very specific, bitter medicine.
That is the exact dynamic at play here.
This merging of political chaos and spiritual healing leads us directly to the final document in our stack today.
This one gave me chills.
It's a standalone warning document that functions as the ultimate ultimatum Narciso issues to both his devoted followers and his harshest critics.
It's a brief piece of text, but the psychological weight it carries is just immense.
The document relays a direct quote, which Narciso claims was spoken straight from God.
And what does it say?
Translating the Tagalog, it says, "If people choose not to believe the messages you are delivering, these events will happen and happen anyway, just to prove to them that what you delivered was true, but by then it will be too late."
The phrasing "too late" there transforms the prophecy from a simple warning into a real threat.
It really does.
Yeah.
The message concludes with a simple command: always be ready.
Always be ready.
Yeah. And he ties this sentiment back to the end of his live video broadcast, where he reminds his audience that when we die, all earthly greed and political maneuvering are left behind. He states that heaven is reserved for those who do good, and hell is waiting for the corrupt.
It functions as the ultimate trump card in his narrative deck.
Totally.
He is essentially telling his audience, you don't have to believe my interpretation of the footprint. You can reject my political analysis of the Senate, but if you ignore me, the disaster I'm predicting will literally manifest into reality simply to prove you wrong.
That is an incredibly powerful mental trap to lay for a vulnerable audience.
It's foolproof.
I want to turn this back to you, the listener. At the end of the day, regardless of the politics or the specific symbols used here, this is fundamentally a deep dive into the raw mechanics of belief.
Absolutely.
Whether you view Narciso Olalo as a genuinely inspired prophet, or whether you see him as a remarkably clever reader of political tea leaves who understands how to leverage social media algorithms and human anxiety, his ability to captivate and mobilize an audience is undeniable.
He deeply understands how to tap into a population's underlying anxieties, about their government, their safety, and their future.
Yeah, he hits all those nerves.
And by mapping a chaotic news cycle onto a divine dream, he offers a lens that makes the chaos feel ordered. Even if that order is terrifying and points towards civil war, for many people, a terrifying plan is still more comforting than random, senseless violence.
The puzzle pieces fit together even if the picture they create is a nightmare.
Very true.
And that leaves us with one final, lingering thought to mull over as we wrap up today's deep dive.
What's that?
Well, think back to that surreal dream we started with. The footprint, the tree, the hammer, the chisel.
Right, the arrow in the bullseye.
Exactly. If a modern prophet's ultimate proof relies on a disaster actually striking to validate their warnings, if the prophecy essentially needs the crisis to occur in order to be proven true, does a society, especially one gripped by anxiety and constantly consuming these digital warnings, start unconsciously leaning toward chaos just to make the prophecy come true?
That is such a good question. Does the constant prediction of a fire motivate us to prevent it? Or does the prediction itself strike the match?
So something to think about the next time you wake up from a strange dream and reach for your cell phone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.